When you hear walking simulator, what do you think of? Usually it's a joke genre that people just throw onto a game, like when you go on the Steam store for Skyrim. The user just slap on walking sim because you have to travel large distances or something akin to a horror game like Amnesia. But this game, I have to tell you about, not only sets the bar, it pushes beyond and sets itself on a very high pedestal. Welcome to What Remains of Edith Finch. I'll try to keep this one short and not spoil too much of the story, but I urge you to try and experience this game for yourself. The story of What Remains of Edith Finch is that our main character, Edith, is visiting her family home. She is the only living relative and wants to discover the secrets of her family. Along the way, we see into their lives, their dreams, and their deaths. The beauty of this experience is how well it connects with its player. Not everyone has the same family life like the bizarre Finch family. Frankly, their deaths are almost comical, or preposterous even. But that's the curse of the family, as the story puts it. Now, I don't want to say that some scenes are silly, the children dying, or accidents, or depression, but there are so many sad deaths in the story, it's a bit much sometimes, I don't know. No, the deep connections lie in its world design and presentation. Immediately, as soon as you enter the garage from the dilapidated exterior, the home feels lived in and preserved for the last decade since we were here. And what I mean is that designers haven't just thrown about garbage every which way. They made careful choices to make this feel like a home. For instance, I immediately noticed a tennis ball hanging down from the garage ceiling, or a filter on a sink faucet. The little touches that remind you that the house is nearly 100 years old, but still has sprinkles of history woven into it, making you feel that if even some of the family were still there, they could explain why everything's there now. This game is a very strong idea of family. I personally connected very strongly with our main character. I don't want to say my family has a dramatic curse, or that my ancestor was so bold to try and float our family house over the ocean only to lose it in the bay. I connected because of the sense of family that this game pushes. I'm one of 30 cousins, and my great-grandparents on my mother's side were also immigrants. I have a very large family, so I understand not knowing a bunch of people on the older end. Now, if I'm just making excuses in my head, that's fine. It's normal to draw connections in the story. That's where this game shines. Most of us have some weird aunt or some relative we can connect to another character in this story. Spoiler warning, both Edith's grandfather and great-grandfather die of negligence. One is killed by a deer bucking him off a cliff, and the other is killed while making a dragon-shaped slide. I immediately think of how silly my dad is. How he once fixed my sandals on a fishing trip with a fishing hook and a fishing line. Or that we once took a trip across the country to Colorado, and the storm nearly took our pop-up camper into the lake. Back into the world design. The entirety of the game has you explore a house full of secret passages and crawl spaces, supposedly installed by Edith's great-grandfather. When you explore each of the family members' bedrooms, you see that great-grandmother Edie has left memorials to each of the family members, leaving behind a journal or piece of information as to how they passed away. When you read each memoir, take control of the person in that story. Then you're dramatically given an inner monologue while you do something that relates to control our character. In Molly's story, we jump around as a cat, or fly as an owl. As Calvin, move our legs with our left hand and rock to swing by using our right. And even our older brother Lewis moves fish at the cannery to the chopping blade with our right hand, while we control the fantasy world with our left. All the while, we're immersed more and more into his fantasy world until it becomes our reality. So that's what remains of Edith Finch. Honestly, it still feels labyrinthian to think about, but I feel that's the magic of this game. It creates connections that grasp onto you and pull you into the story. That empathy you feel for this family and the strength of its conclusion will leave a lasting impression. What Remains of Edith Finch defies the abilities of cinema and classic storytelling, creating something that can only be told through its very own artistic medium. This has been Saffron. Thanks for listening.